Hey y'all, it's Leslie with Fat Cat Flossing. I've had several requests for tutorials on specialty stitches. So this morning I'm going to do three of the ones that you'll see most commonly, which are the Smyrna Cross, the Satin Stitch, and the Algerian Eyelet. And I'll talk a little bit more about each one specifically as I do them. Excuse me. This is an 18 count linen. I have no idea. It's an ivory linen. It's in my stash from 20 plus years ago. And I am currently using 4 strands of DMC floss. And I've just chosen colors that I thought would show up well on this so it's easier for you to see. So the first one I'm going to do is the Smyrna Cross. I have done a couple of Smyrna Crosses here, and I did these over 6 threads just to make them big enough to see. You can do them over 4, over 6, over 8, whatever. So I'll do another one over 6, and then we'll do one over 4 just to show you what that would look like. Since I'm doing it over 6, I'm counting over 3 threads, and whoops. Actually, that's not correct. I'm going to count over 6 threads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And what I do is I make my usual cross, which is top right to bottom left, and then top left to bottom right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm sorry, you can hear my cats fussing in the background. And then I work my vertical leg next. And the Smyrna Cross is basically just a cross stitch overlaid with an upright cross. And one of the important things is that you remember to cross them in the same direction. My horizontal leg always crosses over my vertical leg. And you want that to be consistent just so you have a neat appearance. And that's all it is. It's just an upright or your regular cross stitch. 6. And then again, I work my vertical leg first. It doesn't matter if you work the horizontal or the vertical leg first, as long as you do them consistently the same way. And that's the Smyrna Cross. You can also work it over 2. Well, shoot. And I'm about to run out of floss on this one, but you can also work the same over, 2, 4, 6, 8, whatever the pattern calls for. I don't think I'm going to have enough to get another one done, but we'll see. It's going to be close, y'all. See if we can squeak it out here. And there's one over 4. So over 6 threads, over 2 threads, over 4 threads, they're all the same. It's simply your regular cross stitch overlaid with an upright cross. That's all there is to that one. Satin Stitch is even easier. Satin Stitch is a lot of fun, and it covers a lot of ground in a hurry. And let me undo what I did just a minute ago. You'll see Satin Stitch in a lot of patterns to use for grass. You'll see it used for buildings. You'll see it used for, a number of other things. It makes a pretty accent. Again, I've got 4 threads of floss on this 18 count. And a lot of times when you see Satin Stitch, you'll see it go from smaller to larger to larger. in a pattern. Like I went over 4 threads, and then I went over 6 threads, and then I went over 8 threads here, just to show you the increase. You'll notice here, this is a kind of slubby thread running through my linen right there, and it doesn't look real full right there. So what I would do is I would go back and make another pass through here, even if I went through the same hole twice, and fill that in to make it look more consistent and full. So you can do that on Satin Stitch if you need to fill in, and typically I see that where I have a wider or kind of a slub running through there. And again, you may need to go back and fill in. But in Satin Stitch, you simply stitch either from top to bottom or bottom to top, whichever one floats your boat, over however many threads is specified in the pattern. Right near, I think I'm crossing 6 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so this is over 6 threads. And you just go, again, top to bottom, bottom to top. Some might specify side to side. Again, these are fairly wide threads, and I can see my linen through those. So I would go back, and it really doesn't matter so much which hole you go through. You kind of just guide your fibers down and let them fill in where they're needed to fill in, just to give it a fuller look. And again, you can wax and wane on the size, however is specified. You may also, I got one thread that wants to hang out there. You might have a pattern that specifies going side to side, and that's just the same. You're just moving however is specified in the pattern over however many threads are specified in the pattern. One of the great things about Satin Stitch is that it goes really fast. You cover a lot of ground in a hurry. And I think it's pretty because in a lot of times you can really see the shininess, the luster of the floss when the threads are, instead of being crossed in such short lengths, you have longer lengths, and you can really see the pretty luster of the thread. And again, you can make as many passes as you need to get the kind of coverage that you want. And again, just top to bottom, bottom to top, whatever. You do want to try to go consistently in the same direction, again, just for consistency and to have a nice uniform look. And again, on this 18 count linen, if I were doing a project with this, I might increase the number of threads I were using. That would give me better coverage per pass of the needle, or you can just do multiple passes and get that fuller look. And that's Satin Stitch. And then the last one is what's called the Algerian Eyelet, or just an eyelet stitch. You can do eyelets in a couple of different ways. These first two I did with, it's again 4 strands of DMC on this 18 count, and I used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 passes of the needle to get that eyelet. And I don't know if you can see, but you can actually see through the center. There's an eye there. Now, this first one looks a little wonky because you can see where I used my pin stitch here to start. If I wanted to, I could have gone back over that so you wouldn't see the pin stitch so much. For these purposes, I didn't care that much, but if it were on a project I was working on, I probably would cover that up with another pass of the needle. And on these, you'll also notice I only went in every other thread. On this one, I went over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 threads. But instead of skipping 2 threads in between each pass of the needle, I actually went in between every thread. And so that gives you a much fuller look to it. And you can see the eye is very well defined in this one. Now, one of the things you want to do with the Algerian eyelet is you always start at the outside. So let's say I'm going to duplicate this stitch here. Well, actually, I'll just do it over 4. So my center would be at 2. But you start at the outside and go through the middle, and then you want to, behind it, tug a little bit because you're going to start to open up that eye. And again, I'm starting next thread over because I'm going to do every pass on this one. Back down through that same middle, give it a little tug, But you want to, again, start at the outside and come to the middle. And that way when you're pulling that thread, you're pulling that middle thread up and helping open that eye up. And again, you can do, you're just going to do them as it's specified in your pattern. There is absolutely no reason to be intimidated by specialty stitches. I don't, the name sounds like, ooh, ah, wow, scary. No, they're not. You just follow the directions. If you can read, you can do the specialty stitches. And I screwed that up. Hold on one second. I do a whole lot of shepherd's bush patterns, and one of the things I enjoy about them is that a lot of them have, a lot of them are band samplers, and they include a lot of specialty stitches, but they give you those specialty stitches in relatively small bites. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. No, I didn't screw it up. Just that one thread is so narrow it looks off. But anyway, those give you the opportunity to do a lot of specialty stitches in small amounts. In other words, you're not going to get sick of them while they still give you the opportunity to learn. And they're a very reasonable price for what you get in the kits. Now, the kits are not necessarily cheap, but, well, horse feathers. For everything that you get in them, you get a pretty good price. Now, bear with me while I even this up a little bit. And yes, I'm a thread licker. You'll find my DNA on all of my projects. If I ever use a cross-stitch project as a murder weapon, I won't get away with it. But back to the Algerian eyelet, again, you're going from outside to inside. And giving it, gosh dog it, I just cannot get this to line up and be even. From outside to inside, and when you go back through and give it that tug, you're opening the eye up. Unlike what I just did, which was unstitching. There are some stitches I like better than others. When I did Oh Beautiful from Shepherd's Bush, there was a stitch in it called Swedish Weaving. And I followed the directions and I had no problem doing it, but I did not enjoy doing it. I frankly disliked that one. I never do. If I get that call for another pattern, I'm likely to substitute that out for something else because, like I said, it just was not enjoyable. But, there's lots of different ones that you can do, and I think most of them are kind of fun. So there's my Algerian eyelet over 4 threads. The difference between these and this one is, in these first 2, I only went through every other thread. This one, I went through every thread and obviously pulled a little bit more, and it gave me better coverage around the edge, and it opened that eye up more. One last thing I want to show you about the Algerian eyelets is I am now finished over on this left, my last stitch, because I started in the upper left. My last stitch is now here on the left-hand side. Actually, I need one more stitch, don't I? There should be one through here. But same thing, I'm finishing up on that upper left. So I have to be careful. If I just pull my thread over to the right to start my next stitch, it's going to obscure part of that center eye, and I don't want that. I worked hard on this to get that eye to open up. So the way to keep from doing that is to turn your work over, thread your floss up or down, whichever way you want to, but back through and pull. And again, now the eye is open. You don't see my trailing thread coming across that eye. So I can go ahead and come over here and start my next stitch, and I haven't pulled the thread across these and obscured the eye. Because when you go to frame this or finish it, if there's anything, you'll be able to see that thread going across there instead of seeing the nice open work. But that's it. That's all I have. Again, I would encourage all of you to do some work with specialty stitches. They really can be a lot of fun, and they can add a whole lot of interest to your cross stitch project. And really, again, if you can read the pattern, or if you can follow a YouTube tutorial, and I haven't personally done it, but I am willing to bet that on YouTube, if you search Algerian Eyelet, that you can find a tutorial on how to do this, or a rice stitch, or a queen stitch, or an upright cross stitch, or, you know, herringbone stitch, or any of the gazillion other specialty stitches that are out there. I am by no means an expert on doing these, again, but I can read a pattern and follow a tutorial. And if there are any of that you want to see demonstrated, if you will let me know in the show notes below, I'll wait till I have 3 or 4 requests, and then I'll do this again. Well, maybe I'll learn how to do some of them and do this again, but I have no problem doing the little demo. I hope y'all enjoy.